We're going to talk this morning a little bit about character development. It will be a two-part presentation. You're going to have to listen to me for about 20 minutes. Then we're going to have the break that we normally have. Then you're going to reassemble at your tables, and they will be handouts where you will actually flesh out a character. You will actually develop a character at the table as a group. Now, it doesn't really matter whether you're working on an epic fantasy or a mystery thriller. Well-developed characters make your stories unforgettable. The characters are the heart of storytelling. Readers may enjoy a plot, but they connect with a character. A compelling character draws readers in. It makes them care about what happens next. Now, in this presentation, we're going to cover the core elements of strong character development, how to craft a protagonist, an antagonist, and support characters, and it will look briefly at common mistakes that you can make in the process. By the end of this presentation, you should have a practical set of tools to create a well-rounded, memorable character. At its core, character development is all about growth and depth. From the beginning of the book to the end of the book, your character should grow. There should be something about that character that changes. Static characters do not change. How many of you have read a book that had an incredibly static character in it? Was it one of the best books you ever read? No. Okay. Dynamic characters, on the other hand, are characters that undergo meaningful change. And for it to be meaningful, there has to be something in the character's journey that makes some kind of change in either his personality, his talents, his actions. Something needs to change. And the term that's used is character arcs. Now, it wasn't that long ago, I didn't even know what a character arc was. I wrote my first book without ever hearing the word character arc. I guess I just got lucky. Some of my characters grew. But an arc is just that. It's the journey from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. And during that journey, change takes place. And it's normally a result of the conflict that you write into the center of your book. But when it comes to character development, it really matters. Readers invest in characters when they feel real. And it's not... How many of you have written characters where you struggled to make that character feel real? I have. It's just it's something that we all know that we have to accomplish. Hopefully, by the time we get to the end of this presentation, you'll be able to see ways that you can more easily introduce that change in your character. Now, there are core aspects to character development. To create a believable character, you really need 4 of these elements. And their backstory, motivation, flaws and strengths, and personality and traits. Now, the backstory is your character's past. And it's that past that shapes his present. When you've got, say you've got a soldier with a traumatic past. Now, that character, because of the things that happened in his past, he may have a problem with trust. It's just important that you have to give your readers the information that they need on why your character acts the way he does. They need to know why he has this quirk, why this particular thing upsets him. And you convey all of that information to the reader with the backstory. There needs to be backstory for each one of your characters. And every character needs a goal. There has to be something that they want. And that has to be communicated to your reader. It could be anything from revenge to love, acceptance, money, fame. There's all kinds of things that can motivate a character. You have to decide what is going to motivate your character and then include it in the narrative in some fashion. And then the flaws and strengths. Flaws make a character relatable. If your reader does not relate to the character, they're really not going to care about the book. And it's the flaws that you build into your character that can make that character relatable, and then your characters will empathize with your character. They get immersed in the character. And personality and traits. You use speech patterns, habits, and mannerisms. And these are the things that make your character unique. And that's what adds depth to your character. Give them quirks, give them mannerisms, make their speech pattern unique. I got called to task when I submitted my second book to beta readers. One of them, and I'm going to be ugly. I'm going to just point her out. It's Cindy Price, sitting back there. And it was one of the best pieces of input I've gotten from beta readers. She read a couple of chapters and she said, wait a minute. They all sound the same. I didn't have that problem in the first book because the entire book was written from Colin Duncan's perspective. It was his point of view. So it wasn't an issue. But in the second book, I wrote it from 3 different points of view. Each chapter would be a different character's point of view. And that's where I got in trouble with speech patterns. Because when I reread it, I said, yeah, it all sounds like Colin. So I had to go back through and rewrite 16 chapters and give that character a unique individual voice. And thank you. I appreciate it. It greatly improved the book. Now, does that say create a compelling protagonist?
Something goals, strengths, and weaknesses.
It looks like maybe protagonist.
Yeah.
It's not all on the screen. Anyway, a great protagonist isn't just someone who's interesting. Readers need a reason to root for that character. And it's the way you develop the character, the way you work in the complexity and the depth. that is going to cause the reader to identify with the character, relate with the character. And then once they do that, they can empathize with the character. And then they have someone they can root for. You need to develop clear goals and motivation. What do they want and why? That a protagonist without a purpose feels aimless. Let me repeat that. A protagonist without a purpose feels aimless. You need to give them strengths and weaknesses. They have to have enough talent to get the job done. But you have to give them limitations that is going to make the journey more difficult. You give them enough strength to get the job done, but you give them limitations to make getting that job done a little harder. You just have to ask yourself, why should the reader care about my protagonist? It's up to you, the author, to give them that reason that's going to make the reader care. Now, when it comes to writing a believable antagonist, it's the same thing, only different. Villains should be more than just obstacles. A great antagonist also has depth. You give your protagonist depth. Give your antagonist depth as well. They should be more than just evil. A villain who wants power just for power's sake, honestly, is forgettable. Instead, give them personal stakes. You've given your protagonist personal stakes. There's something that he stands to lose if things don't go his way. Do the same thing with your antagonist. Give them stakes that they stand to lose if things don't go their way. And they need strengths and weaknesses just as much as any other character. You might have this guy that's totally ruthless. He has no qualms about going in and destroying a whole room full of people. But yet he's got a soft spot for a sibling. You can use those kinds of things to give your antagonist a little bit more depth and complexity. But the primary purpose of an antagonist is to challenge the protagonist. The best villains test the hero in ways that force them to grow. Now I'm going to repeat that too. The best villains test the hero in ways that force them to grow. Think of Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker, or the Joker versus Batman. In both cases, it was the antagonist and the conflict that ensued between the two that produced the growth in the protagonist. So you can use that antagonist to create the growth, to establish the arc for your protagonist. And here's another one that should be written down. A strong antagonist makes the protagonist journey meaningful. If it weren't for the antagonist, what would the good guy do? Now, support characters. It's same tune, second verse, just not quite to the same degree. But support characters shouldn't just be placeholders. Even if they aren't the main focus in the plot, give those support characters purpose. They shouldn't exist just to give advice. You can do that through meaningful relationships. How do they interact with the protagonist? Are they a mentor, a rival, or a comic relief? And it's so easy to concentrate on your main characters that you wind up underdeveloping your support characters, and they wind up flat and one-dimensional. So you've got to put some effort into your support characters. Say you're writing a Western and you got this grumpy sheriff who is just irascible. If you don't explain to the reader that the reason he's grumpy is because of his tragic past, then nobody understands why he's grumpy. So you need to give a little bit of backstory even to your support characters. The best supporting characters feel like they have a life outside of the plot. Let me repeat that one too. The best supporting characters feel like they have lives outside of the main plot. Now, dialogue is a powerful tool for showing characters. They need a distinct voice, a noble warrior, a street smart thief, or a nervous scholar. You have all three of them in a scene. They shouldn't all sound the same, should they?
No.
Give them different speech patterns. How many of you ever heard the term show, don't tell? It is so popular, I'm going to use it in this presentation too. You've got a character in a scene who is going to be nervous about something. Now, you have a couple of different ways that you can convey that nervousness. You can put it in the narrative. He was nervous. Or you can use dialogue and have that character say, I don't know if that's a good idea. Both convey nervousness. The dialogue does a better job. So you can convey these things using dialogue, but you have to be careful. Your conversation should be realistic. A drug dealer is not going to speak like a PhD. You need to have the conversations be realistic for that particular character. You don't want to have it be stiff and overly expository either. You just have to be careful how you use dialogue. It's a very effective tool, but you just need to keep it realistic. And even relationships can drive character growth. The way they interact with others, their friendships, their rivalries, their romances, all of these things can be used to shape who they become. And you want character consistency. Now, isn't that a contradiction in terms? I just told you make him grow, and now I'm going to tell you to keep him consistent. Who wrote this thing, Mike? When it comes to consistency, what I'm talking about is a character who is, let's call him, he's not very coordinated. He's not very athletic. He's a scholar. But the woman he loves is hanging, she's fell off a cliff and she's hanging from a vine. And in one paragraph, you describe him as being uncoordinated and all of that. In the next paragraph, he's tying a rope around a tree, swinging out over the cliff and rescuing his honey. Changes like that do not happen from one paragraph to the next. Now, if you want to make him the kind of person who can do that. Do it over time and make him earn it. He has to earn the change. And this is true for all of your characters, whatever situation they're in. They need to earn the change that happens in their arc. There should be no freebies in your book. And you can use body language and habits as well. Instead of over-explaining emotions, you go into great detail in the narrative and you get 3 paragraphs explaining the emotional trauma that this one particular character is going through. It might be better to show that emotion through actions. Give them, well, say you got a character's nervous. And when he's nervous, he fidgets. Or he won't make eye contact with you. You can use those, you explain those once. And then the next time that same character will not make eye contact with you and he fidgets. The reader knows he's nervous because you've established that's what he does when he's nervous. So you can use that sort of thing. Body language and habits. The ones that come to mind are TV shows like Columbo. Love Columbo. Got that old trench coat on and that hat. He's always disabled. But everybody he interviews, everybody he interrogates, underestimates him. So he's used those nonverbal things to convey what's actually going on. Monk was another one, the germaphobe. But you can use those kinds of things to communicate the emotions that your characters are going through non-verbally. Now, we're going to talk just a little bit about common mistakes. Well, we've actually talked about most of them. I've stole my own thunder. Do not make your characters flat and one-dimensional. And they're always going to be flat if you don't take the time to give them depth. Give them a little backstory. Give them something that makes them unique. And then they will stand out in your book. Be careful not to make your character perfect. How many people in this room are perfect? Well, you just lied. So you're not perfect. Nobody in this room is perfect. So your characters should not be perfect either. Nobody is. Dudley Do-Right is probably the only perfect character in any kind of media. For those of you, I'm dating myself. Oh, man. Most of you don't even know who Dudley Do-Right was.
Sailor Rabbit. Yeah.
Yep. And another thing that I think is really important and lacking in a lot of the stories that I've read, and that is internal conflict. It's all fairly easy for us to give our heroes external conflicts. I find it incredibly easy. But they need internal conflict. I remember the cowboy. He was a gunslinger. And he's now past middle age, and he's tired of killing people. So he hangs up his 6-shooters, and he moves to a town that nobody knows him, and becomes a farmer. And everything works well for a couple of years, until the bank robbing gang comes into town and terrorizes the entire town. And there's only one thing that's going to save the people in the town. And that's for this gunslinger to violate this oath that he took. that he would never, ever strap on a 6-shooter again. So he has to struggle with that internally. Can I do that? Can I violate an oath that I gave to myself? And eventually he works his way through it. He straps on a 6-shooter. He goes into town and he kicks butts and takes names. But he had to struggle internally with that. So give your characters internal struggle. And then we talked about inconsistent behavior. Now, that's going to end, finally, this portion of the presentation. We're going to have our 15-minute break. We're going to come back to the table. You're going to get your handouts, and then we'll go through the process of crafting a character at your table. So, unless you have anything else, 15 minutes, enjoy the snacks. you.